and that is legalization of drugs. First of all, they speak about legalizing marijuana, and then they speak about legalizing other drugs after that. And the argument for it, of course, is that prohibition didn't work too well. In the early days of the 20th century, when the consumption of alcohol was banned in the United States as a federal law, it was a calamity. It was not a good thing, in spite of the fact that alcoholism had been a problem before. There was a very good reason that many solid citizens tried to get the government to pass laws against alcohol. But it turned out to produce more problems than it was worth. Well, people argue that the so-called war against drugs is doing the same thing. Number one, it's not stopping those people who are determined to have drugs. It's not stopping them from getting it. All it's doing is creating an entire criminal culture around the area of drugs. And so one could imagine that a good argument can be made, and how this will play out, I have absolutely no idea. But I don't regard drugs as harmless. And I'll tell you why. One of the main reasons is that drugs remove you from reality. Like using alcohol or abusing alcohol, it creates an alternative reality where everything is cool, as they say. Everything is fine. Everything is good and comfortable and warm and cozy. Look, that's not exactly how God wanted us to live. God wants us to try and achieve and to struggle and to face challenge, even at formidable odds, in order to grow and to move ahead and to drag ourselves upwards onto the next plateau, onto the next level of accomplishment. That's what we're supposed to do. And this ambition and this desire to move our lives forward gets stunted by drugs. It takes us away from reality. And as I've often said, everyone needs a rabbi, because my job as a rabbi is to reveal how the world really works. Drugs take away how the world really works. To such an extent, and I know many people wonder about this, why would employers do drug tests? Why should an employer care what you do on your own free time? Why should it matter to anybody if you spend Saturday and Sunday in a drug-induced stupor? As long as you come to work on time Monday morning and you do your job, what's the problem? And many are uncertain of how to respond to that. And the answer, I believe, that is a true and correct answer for how to respond to that is that taking drugs, becoming dependent on drugs, reflects a spiritual weakness. It suggests that you are somebody who is more eager to escape reality than to seize reality. You're somebody who is more inclined to slide along the easiest route than somebody who is willing to walk the difficult road. And you can't blame an employer for giving favored treatment to a candidate who shows that he does have the strength to face challenge rather than taking a drug to make the challenge go away. Think about it. If you're an employer, wouldn't you want to know that the person you're hiring has the kind of character that will add to your enterprise and bring benefit to your organization? I know I would. And so regular usage of drugs and growing dependency on drugs would be one way of revealing that you are somebody who seeks an escape from reality rather than somebody who works with reality to build a better reality. Makes sense. The same would be true of alcohol. Even if you never show up drunk at work, but you spend the whole weekend drunk, I would want to recommend to nobody should hire you. Really. And if somebody like that comes to apply for a job in your organization, I would recommend that it would be a mistake to hire him. You might say, well, Rabbi Lapin, why? He's at work on time on Monday morning. He does his job. Why do I care that he spends Saturday and Sunday in a drunken, intoxicated, delirious state? And the answer is because in any organization, you cannot count on things working smoothly 100% of the time. There is such a thing as crisis. There is such a thing as having to make split, snap, second judgments where you've got to decide what to do and you've got to do it. And somebody whose spirit and whose soul has been diminished by drug usage, somebody whose character has been weakened by regular alcohol dependency, cannot be counted on for the right judgment when the chips are down, and cannot be counted on to make a snap, split-second judgment and to act without delay, because there is a damage that has taken place, not necessarily to the body, but to the soul. And it is the soul that we count on, and it is from the soul that we draw when the chips are down and you need to make decisions and you need to act. Well, I'm sure that none of this is very controversial. I would like to think that you're probably nodding your head and you're saying, well, yeah, you know, that pretty much makes sense. I'm not sure I agree with everything, but yeah, that's okay. I hear that. But now I'm going to say something that you may not agree with at all. And that is that if somebody arrives to interview for a position, and this person is morbidly obese, this person is so overweight that the word fat does not even begin to describe it. And what's more, we're able to ascertain that there's no doctor's letter, the person isn't under medical treatment, there's no medical reasons, there's not a genetic reason, or there is not a glandular reason for this, but the person is obviously somebody who cannot stop himself from eating, and he simply doesn't have the discipline and the drive to go for any exercise. Because after all, and heaven knows, as a rabbi who's perhaps had one good meal too many myself, I know eating is fun, exercise takes discipline. And there is no question about it that eating a lot and exercising a little means you are going to gain weight. And if you do an awful lot of eating without control and you do zero exercise, I guess you're eventually going to become horribly fat and morbidly obese. And therefore, I would not want to hire a person like that in my organization. Not because I think they're not going to be able to do the job, not because I think they're going to be involved in extra medical expenses because they're in such an unhealthy bodily state. All of that may be true. But I have another reason, which is that anybody who has let themselves go to that incredible extent, way beyond normal, and I know as a nation, we tend to be a little on the overweight side in the United States of America, but I'm talking about somebody who has revealed a character defect, somebody whose weight is so overboard that clearly there is something wrong. And that tells me that when a critical decision has to be made that requires character and judgment, when it's time for somebody to look me in the eye and say, you know what, I screwed up, I made a mistake, I got to tell you about this. I don't want things to get worse in the company. You're probably going to want to fire me, but I owe it to you to tell you that I made a mistake. You want anybody who works in your organization to come to you and do that. And you wouldn't fire them because you'd want to keep somebody with that level of integrity. People can make mistakes. But somebody who has a character weakness is not going to be able to make themselves come to you and say, a terrible thing happened, I'm responsible, made a mistake, I need to tell you because we got to solve it, we got to fix it up. Not everybody can do that. And somebody who has gone way down the road of indulgence and weakness, well, can't count on that sort of person.